So I finally got my real estate visa for Colombia. Wow, what a journey. After nearly 10 months of paperwork, waiting, more paperwork, I finally picked up my cédula the other day. And if you're thinking about doing the same, here's exactly what happened. Right from deciding first to get the real estate visa, right up until picking the cédula up from Migración Colombia and finally having the real estate visa. It genuinely feels like a weight off my shoulders, and day-to-day life now in Colombia should be easier for me. Now I have the real estate visa and I'm off the tourist permit. And I do get asked a lot of questions about visas on this channel, so I thought it'd be useful for you guys to walk through the whole process from start to finish, and maybe you can learn something. But before I get into it, this is not legal advice. I'm not a visa expert. I am just sharing my own personal experience with you guys because there are some lessons to be learned from it. I didn't do everything perfectly. I did some research, yes, but there are definitely some things I would change in my visa application in the future. So let's get into it. So it started around 10 months ago, September 2025. I decided that I was going to go for the real estate M visa. It was either going to be the real estate one or the company one, and I thought for my personal circumstances the real estate one was the best bet. I just felt like the company visa was a lot more risky. You have to file paperwork every year when the company does its accounts. You have to find a good Colombian company in the first place to invest in, which actually allows foreign investors as well, because a lot of companies wouldn't allow foreign investors. If you're not careful and you don't do your due diligence, the company could go bust or you could get caught up in a scam. I'm sure this has happened before, because I'm sure there are people out there who would love to take advantage of a relatively naive foreigner with $50,000, $60,000 to spare just to take their money basically. And also, if you were to find a good Colombian company to invest in, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to make your 10% a year on that investment that you otherwise would be able to have in the stock market. So the money that you've got in there might not even do that well. And so for me, the business visa to invest in a Colombian company to get the visa wasn't really an option for me. And also, most importantly, you can't live in a company. And this is the main reason why I thought the real estate visa was the best thing for me to do. Because not only can you use the apartment or a house as the vehicle to get the visa, you can also live in it. You can't live in a company, you can't live in shares, but you can live in an apartment that you buy, you can live in a house that you buy. And so if you can kill two birds with one stone, I think that's a good idea. Or at least that's how I thought it in my head. I mean, yes, the threshold for the real estate visa is a lot higher than the company visa, but at the time, 2025, last year, the amount for the company visa was still a lot of money. It was 50, 60,000 US dollars. Considering this could be almost dead money, not even earning you that 10% per year that you could easily make in the S&P 500, I thought the real estate one was a much better deal. So yeah, September 2025, 10 months ago, I decided I was going to go for the real estate investment visa. And so still in September, that same month, I found this flat I'm currently in. I looked at others, I looked at new projects, old ones that needed work doing to it, and I finally settled on this one because it kind of ticked all my boxes. It had everything that I needed. And if you haven't watched the full kind of walkthrough of this apartment, I've got a video on my YouTube channel about that. I'll kind of put a little link up here. So I found this flat and I started the process of purchasing it. Now with all these things, it's a big decision. It's not like you're buying a packet of chicle from the supermarket. These things take time. I didn't want to rush it. I used a local lawyer who spoke English, and basically you can't rush the process. It's a big investment. It's a big decision you're making. So I asked a lot of questions. I wanted to make sure this was the right apartment. There was nothing wrong with it. And remember, at this time, September last year, no one predicted the 24% minimum wage increase, which basically increases the threshold by that exact amount for the real estate visa. So I started the process of purchasing this apartment with 2025's figures in mind, factoring in around a 12-15% minimum wage increase. No one was predicting the 24% wage increase. And so in hindsight, would I have purchased a slightly more expensive apartment to give myself more of a buffer for the real estate visa? Potentially, yes. But the fact of the matter is, these processes take time. And so if you start the process in September like I did, you're not going to be completing until later on that year, potentially even the following year, which is what happened with me. But yeah, this is just part and parcel of the process, and it is something to consider. If you are purchasing an apartment for the real estate visa in the latter half of the year, know that there's a high probability that you'll be completing the following year and you'll have to use the following year's minimum wage for your real estate visa application. Okay, so fast forward to January this year, that's 6 months ago, I finally complete on the purchase of this property. In Medellín, it's almost impossible to complete early January because you need the Pase Salvo document, which is proof that you paid the yearly predial, and they only issue this kind of mid to end of January. So basically, if your house is in in Medellín that you are going to be unable to complete on the property early in January. So completed on the property late January, and I really tried to kind of push the transaction and finish it at the end of last year so that I could have potentially used last year's figures for the real estate visa, but that just didn't happen. These things take time. There are always roadblocks, there are always stumbling points, things always take longer than you think. And that's just something that you kind of have to expect with one of these processes of buying a property, especially in a foreign country. So yeah, completed on this property late January, but the important thing to note is that you do not get the deed straight away. That comes after you complete, because once you've completed, then you can apply to get the deed sent through. And it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months for them to send you through the completed deed. And you need the completed deed on your visa application because that is the proof that you are the owner of the property that you purchased, right? So this is another thing that I kind of learned on the way. You can't complete on the property on this day and on that day as well apply for the visa. You're going to be applying for the visa months after you complete on the property. So that's also something to bear in mind. Yeah, and as you can imagine, paperwork in Colombia, these things take time. It's not instantaneous. The first quarter of the calendar year is a really busy time for property transactions. So to get the deed takes more time at this point of the year compared to other points of the year. So my advice is definitely factor in that time to wait for the deed to arrive in your calculations when you're considering the real estate visa. Because if you don't account for that time and you think that you can get the real estate visa just a couple of weeks after you complete the property, because let's say maybe your tourist permit days end or you need to do something else or whatever it is, you could be in for a nasty surprise, right? So that was end of January, completed on the property purchase. So fast forward to end of March. So 2 months after that, the deed arrived, we can formally apply for the real estate visa. So the first thing I did was I applied for my police ACRO, which is like the UK version of the FBI background check in the US. So I applied for this online. I had it sent to an address in the UK. And again, paperwork like this, it takes time to arrive, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a little bit more. But that's what I was told to do by my solicitor. So the deed arrived. Now I have proof that I'm the owner of this property. Then I applied online for my police ACRO to get sent in the UK. Now I was told by my solicitor here that technically speaking, they don't ask for the FBI check or the police ACRO on the initial visa application, but they almost always do ask for it. And so it is a really good idea for you to be ahead of the curve and already have that document apostilled, notarized, officially translated into Spanish, etc. before your visa application, because they almost definitely will ask for that because they're quite strict on the timings. For example, on the date of your visa application, you need your criminal background check or the police check, whatever it is, to be within, I think, 3 months of the date of your visa application. And so if you leave it too long, it won't kind of work, etc. So this is just a little tip I picked up from my solicitor, which goes to show you using a solicitor, using a lawyer who knows what they're doing can save you a lot of time, energy, and attention. Even though it's going to cost you a little bit of money up front, it might save you on future applications. So I'd highly recommend, even if you're just going for a so-called basic visa, use a local solicitor who knows what they're doing because they're worth their weight in gold. So yeah, end of March, when the deed arrives, I applied to get my police documents sent to the UK. 2 or 3 weeks later, mid-April, which is around 2.5 months ago, my police ACR document arrives, the background check, and I have that apostilled and officially translated into Spanish in London. Luckily, I'd already done a visa application unsuccessfully last year as well when I tried to get the digital nomad visa. I've talked a lot about on this channel. I actually applied 5 times, isn't that crazy? So I already knew someone reputable to go to in London to get the document apostilled, to get it translated, all of that good stuff. So that part of the process was relatively painless for me because I'd already gone through it before. And also, luckily, on this visa application, you don't need the original document. You just need a scanned apostilled version of the document. So luckily, after I had it apostilled in the UK, I could just have that digitally sent over to me here in Colombia. I didn't need to worry about having it sent over from London to Medellín via DHL, which would cost me more money, more time, etc. So thumbs up to the Colombian government for that, for accepting a scanned copy of a police ACRO, because otherwise it would have been another step in order to do it. Okay, now fast forward mid-May, around a month later, which is around 1.5 months ago, I've got all the documents I need. I've got the deed, I've got the police ACRO translated and apostilled, done my photograph to get the visa. By the way, I've been told that they are super strict on things like the photo, how you format it, what size it is, all of that stuff. So I went to a specific place in Oviedo Mall here in Poblado, and they know exactly what to do. They've got the proper camera, they know all the special dimensions. That's another thing to note, is they are really nitpicky on things like photo size, how it looks, format, color, all of that stuff. So I know it doesn't sound like a lot in a month's time to have all of these documents ready, but if you're taking your visa application seriously, you want to have all of your ducks in a row by the time you're ready to send off your visa application. So this is around 8.5 months ago. After a little bit of backwards and forth between me and my solicitor, we are finally ready to press send on the visa application process. I say process because there's like an initial application you need to do in order for the Colombian government to ask you for the police document or the FBI background check, that kind of thing. So basically you apply for it once and you hear like 1 hour later and they say, oh, upload this again. It's a little bit fiddly like that in terms of like different applications, etc. But mid-May, around 1.5 months ago, that's when we hit the send button on the final visa application process. And they say when you hit send, it can take up to 30 days for us to get back to you. And my solicitor told me at the moment they are taking up to 30 days, sometimes even longer, for them to get back to you, for them to give you a result on your visa application process. And this is exactly what happened to me, because around mid to end June, 3 weeks ago, after checking my email every single day from a response from the Colombian government about my visa application, I was checking. Finally, I got the response to hear that it was successful, that I got my visa. So it was actually exactly on the 30th day after I submitted, I heard back from them to say it had been successful. But you know what's funny? This is just the first email to say that it's been successful. They don't tell you how long you've got the visa for. You need to wait another 3 Labor days in order to get a second acceptance email which tells you how long you've got the visa for. It's crazy, I know. I don't understand why they have 2 separate success emails for that. So anyway, I wait the 3 working days. Obviously, I'm wondering how long it's for. I'm kind of expecting a year on the visa, but I'm hoping it's kind of 2 or 3 years on the visa because that would make things a lot easier for me. But they actually ended up giving me slightly less than 11 months on my visa, which initially I was pretty upset about, as you can imagine. So why was it 11 months? Well, they took a year minus the 30 days that they took to reply to me, minus again those 3 Labor days that you have to wait for the second email. So I got just under 11 months on my visa. They gave me a year on the day that I did the application. Now, why did they only give me a year? Well, the specific insurance that I had didn't allow me to have health insurance or pay for health insurance for more than a year. It was just capped at a year. So they looked at the end date of my health insurance, which was capped at 1 year on the date of the application, and they just set my visa to finish on that day. Now, I was told that the length of your health insurance doesn't really have a bearing on how long they give you a visa for. But obviously, in my case, they did exactly that. They looked at the expiration of my health insurance and just said, oh, well, we'll give Harry the visa up until this exact day or the day before. And so that is one thing that I would change in my applications in the future. I'm going to pay upfront for 2 or 3 years of health insurance with a different provider, because the provider I currently have doesn't allow you to do that, in order to give myself a better chance of a 2 or 3 year real estate visa, which just makes life 100% easier rather than having to renew it every single year. And so yeah, that is something that I would change in the future. I was told that some people have got 3-year visas having only had 1 year health insurance, but obviously in my case right now, that's just not my reality. I wouldn't say it's a mistake I made. I feel like I did everything right, but obviously in hindsight, they were really looking at the expiration date of my health insurance. So in the future, I'm just going to get longer on that. So that was mid to end June, around 3 weeks ago. So taking it up until now, I had to make a couple of trips to Migración Colombia over there in Berlin in order to do the process of like getting the cédula, doing all the paperwork for that, because you need to do a few things after they accept you for the visa. For example, the first appointment is like a little mini interview. You sit down there, they ask you a few questions, you do your fingerprint on their machine, you have your photo taken again. They ask you some other questions like what's your blood type, things like this. This appointment took around 60 minutes, give or take. This is like the first longer appointment you have to do in Migración Colombia. Once that's done, you have to go away. You wait around 8 days or maybe a couple of weeks for the cédula card to arrive. And then I was notified by my solicitor that the cédula, the card, was ready to pick up in Belén. So I went there for a second time. It took around half an hour. I didn't need an appointment or anything. I just showed up, had to wait a few minutes, had to speak to a couple of people. You can just imagine it's not like the best run facility. It's actually not too bad in the end, but it's not super streamlined and slick. So yeah, waited around half an hour, finally picked up my cédula. And when I had the card in my hand, wow, it felt good. It felt like an accomplishment. I finally no longer on my tourist permit here in Colombia. I've got the card. I don't have to use my passport anymore. It's just like a really good feeling. Yeah, and this appointment took around 30 minutes. It wasn't really that long, honestly. So there you have it, from deciding on the visa, finding the apartment, buying the apartment, waiting for the deed to come through, getting the ACRO from the UK, submitting the visa application, waiting the 30 full days to hear a response, collecting the cédula, and finally feeling like you're a more permanent person, I guess, in Colombia. And overall, it took me around 10 months from start to finish, from making the decision to having the cédula in my hand. And so if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably change 2 things. The first one, I'd start the process a little bit earlier than I did. I felt like I gave myself enough time anyway, but with these things, you can never have enough time. time, right? Because things always take longer than you think. So that's the first one. I would give myself slightly more time for the whole process. And the second point, the most important one, is I would definitely buy more health insurance upfront, 2 or 3 years, to give myself every chance of having a 2 or 3 year visa rather than less than 11 months that I got. But that being said, first time real estate visa, I doubt I would have got 2 or 3 years, but I may have got a 1 month more if I'd had more time on my health insurance. And so hopefully this gives you guys an idea of a realistic timeline if you're thinking about doing the same thing. And if you've got any questions about the process, as I said, I'm not a legal expert. I don't really know what I'm talking about too much, but I have gone through the process recently. You can let me know in the comments below. And if you are watching and you have already gone through the process that I have, how does it compare to mine? Was it smoother? Was it not as smooth? Did I make any other mistakes that I'm not really aware about? Also, let me know below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.